Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, Tulsa's source for great gardens, southwoodgardencenter.com, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing. Welcome to Oklahoma Gardening. On today's show, host Casey Hinches is in the shade perennial garden with 5 great flowering plants for those less sunny spots. We travel to Little River Park in Moore, Oklahoma. Barbara Brown cooks a tasty ramen dish, and Casey has the details on how your garden might be featured on our show.
A well-designed woodland garden is like walking through a life-size fairy garden. The cool colors of green are a nice relaxing place to just enjoy the fireflies throughout the evening. Now, a woodland garden may not be appropriate for every location in our state, but if you have a shady garden that has rich, moist soil, you might want to consider adding these 5 woodland plants.
Plant number 1.
Solomon seal is a great addition to a woodland garden with the nice cool shades of green that it provides. It has arching branches that are about 18 to 24 inches tall, and they individually come up out of the ground. Now from these branches you'll see a pair of white bell-shaped flowers that hang, and you'll notice these flowers starting to bloom not only by the look but also by the lily-like fragrance that they emit. Eventually these flowers turn into black colored berries that will hang from these branches. This is a great one for the woodland garden. This particular cultivar is called variegatum, and it's one that you'll often find on the market with these stripes of white or kind of a yellow marking through the leaves. Solomon seal is hardy from zones 3 to 8.
Plant number 2.
It's always easy to like a plant when it's first flushing out, but this plant, Bear's Britches, is one that I love because it has this lush green foliage throughout the season. It not only looks like this in early spring, but it will continue to look like this in August when a lot of our other landscape plants are starting to look a little more tattered. In fact, the foliage is so great on this plant, it is kind of known to be a model for what adorns the Greek and Roman Corinthian columns. Now, if I haven't convinced you of this plant just based off of the foliage alone, later on in spring, it will actually produce a 3 to 5 foot tall flowering spike that is covered with white flowers. Each flower is hooded with kind of a rose-colored petal that covers that white flower. It almost looks like a giant snapdragon. Being hardy from zones 7 to 10, it does like a little bit warmer climate, so if you are in northern Oklahoma, you want to allow this foliage to die back to provide kind of a natural mulch and protection throughout the winter time. You're then going to trim that foliage back in the spring, allowing this new growth to come back on. Bear's Britches is a great plant for any woodland garden.
Plant number 3.
You can't have a woodland garden without including some ferns. And this is the sensitive fern, and we enjoy this because of the great texture that it provides. Unlike some of the other plants we've mentioned, they provide flowers, but for ferns, we're just really looking for the color and the texture of these fern fronds. And these have big lobes in their leaves that you can see here. We call it sensitive fern, but it actually can be pretty aggressive and can get much taller in really moist conditions, especially near creeks and streams. So why is this plant called sensitive fern? Although it is winter hardy, the first frost that it experiences will set it back, as well as any other drought conditions that it might experience in the summertime.
Plant number 4.
Toad lily is another great woodland plant to add. It has an orchid-like flower, but it's actually in the lily family. It has a purple and white flower with little speckles all over it, and some say speckled like a toad. Now this plant will get to be about 2 to 3 feet tall. And what's nice about this plant is while some of your other woodland plants will start to shut down in late summer, that's when this just starts blooming. It's hardy in zones 4 through 8.
Plant number 5.
When we're talking about woodland plants, one of the last ones probably to come to mind would be an orchid. But here we have a hardy ground orchid, which is perfectly suited for a moist, rich, shady location. You can see it has these lovely cattleya-like flowers on it that come in pink, purple, and white. It also has these pleated-like leaves that are strappy. This orchid is hardy from zones 5 to 9, so it will return for you each season. Adding these 5 plants will add texture to your garden, the right amount of pop of color, and just those nice shades of green, turning your woodland garden into a fairy tale. On May 20th, 2013, many of us watched as the city of Moore was devastated by a tornado that ripped across the city. In that devastation, a lot of time and effort has gone back to rebuilding the city. And we are here at Little River Park, which is one of the city parks here in Moore. And joining me is Todd Jensen, the Assistant City Manager. And Todd, can you tell us about what that tornado did to the city and how you've come through that?
Yeah, you know, May 20, 2013 is a date that everybody remembers. You don't forget something like that, but it was a typical May day. You know, we have those 1 or 2 days in May each year that are, you know, the weathermen say that you watch out and all that. And so that was one of those days, and you think it's never going to hit you, but it did that day, and it was devastating to us. It was devastating to the community. It impacted really everyone. Mm-hmm. The schools, and we're very familiar with that, unfortunately. The park system, the school administration building, the post office, the hospital, all those things that we use on a daily basis, it impacted. And so, as we were talking earlier, you think, how are we going to recover from this? How do you clean up after this? How do you get back to a sense of normalcy? And the way that I describe it is you just do it one day at a time. One step at a time, and then you look back 3, 4, 5 months back, and you think we've recovered. We've done all the things that we needed to do, and then you look forward to the future and how you get better and stronger and all that.
And so, we're here at the Little River Park, which took a direct hit. We're near the Warren Theater and some of the other places that were immediately impacted from that tornado. Can you tell us why this park was so important to revitalize and bring back?
Well, it was ground zero. I mean, where we're standing right now is where the tornado went through. And so I think in a sense, this park symbolizes the resiliency of Moore, the recovery, and not just recovering and going back to where we were, but being better than we were and stronger and more improved. And I think with the things that we've been able to do with our partners here at Little River, we're well on our way in doing that. So it's really a symbol for the community.
And as we know, as Oklahomans, when we face adversity, out of that adversity, a lot of times comes opportunity. And this park is becoming even better than what it was. Can you tell us a little bit about the changes to the park?
Yes. Well, the tornado, we looked at it as an opportunity. And as you said, and so what we've been able to do, we've done some long-range strategic planning, and we've talked to the community and the neighborhood, and City Council adopted a master plan that really laid out the future for Little River. And so we're very early on in that work, and with our partners, the donations and all the funds that we've been able to get through this process, we think that we've developed a park, or in the process of developing a park that the community will be proud of. And one of the things that we're doing right now is we're building what we think is the largest splash pad in Oklahoma. It's huge and it's going to be magnificent. Right next to it, we're building a new playground. This fall, we're going to be in this area here where we're at right now. We're going to start extending the walking trail. The trail system will be 1 mile to 1.5 miles long through here. It'll be a concrete trail. It'll be much better than it was before. Landscaping. new tree plantings. We lost, thousands of trees here,
Mm-hmm.
so we want to go back with as many of those as we can. And so we think that when it's done here in a couple of years, it's going to be unlike any park, certainly in this area in Oklahoma as well.
And you guys intentionally have done this in phases,
Yes.
so people can already start enjoying what is built as you're continuing the other phases of the project. Why was that intentional?
Well, we wanted to, after the park was cleaned up, we wanted to get some park amenities here for the neighborhood and the community to enjoy. And that's what you see behind us here. That's the first phase. The second phase was really the planning phase for the longer term things. And so we went through the planning phase, and now we're in that longer term building process. We're in the early phase of that. So as I mentioned, 2 years from now, it will be a completely new park with amenities that we could only have dreamed of several years ago.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing with us.
You bet. My pleasure.
In order to bring a community back from devastation, it takes a lot of partners. And one of those partners here is the Oklahoma City Community Foundation. And you guys are helping to heal the scars. Can you tell me about the details that you're involved with here at Little River?
Of course, after the tornado and more, the Community Foundation did a lot of things with respect to the recovery, and of course the recovery of the community and how its people work in the community is a really important part of it. So we have done a lot of work in parks across all of Oklahoma City, and it really seemed like a really important thing to do, to come down here and help build this park back, because it was so important to the people to have a place and for normality to come back. So we decided to make not only a financial commitment to help restore the trees, but to bring in the expertise on our staff to really help them think through what's the best way to utilize this park and really bring it back and do it in a way that involved lots of other partners in the community. So we were very committed to that, because it really is part of the recovery from the tornado, not just the physical recovery, but the spiritual recovery of the whole community, to have things back as normal as possible.
Absolutely. This is where people of all ages come and enjoy life again. And so you've got new playgrounds and new splash pads that are coming out here. But there's a lot of work that goes into building that infrastructure, and this park is actually going to be even better now that it's being rebuilt. There's
Right.
opportunity that has come out of this devastation.
Right, and we have at the Community Foundation, one of the things that we've been able to do with people is not only provide funding, but also provide some expertise in helping them do that planning. And so we were able to bring to them some of that expertise from a lot of the other park opportunities that we've done in the community.
And some of that expertise is Brian, who's a landscape architect. That's handy to have
Well,
on staff.
it was a great opportunity for us to be able to work. We had worked some with all the communities around Oklahoma City, but every time you have a devastation like this, it's a little different, and you have to look back about how you're going to put the pieces back together and where can we make improvements. Today, stormwater is such a big part. How you're going to maintain and sustainability of it. So the idea is, can we do this even better? Walkability is huge about community health. So how the walking trails would be done at the park.
And you guys have worked with several different groups in the community to help fund some of this improvement. How specifically have you made sure that those dollars are being used wisely? You were mentioning some of the different details with the sidewalks and things like that, and the tree planting.
I just think, part of it is Moore had some really good infrastructure thoughts. It's like where the sidewalks go, they have it all identified where tractors and trucks cross, and those are thickened slabs. So, you don't have cracked sidewalks as often. There was a lot of strategic master planning, where the restrooms would go, where the water fountains would go, where watering hydrants would be for trees. So there was just a lot of that, where trash cans would be located. How do you activate this park in the safest and most effective and most sustainable method?
And that wasn't just all on the city deciding that.
I think we all sat around a table. I remember up at City Hall just sitting around a table and saying, okay, and we did some placeholders. We said, if an opportunity for another playground were to come, if an opportunity for another pavilion was to come, where would be those natural places? So sometimes it was a placeholder.
Well, and actually that was how some of the partners then came in, because they came to us and said, what can we do? Well, because there was this plan, we were able to say to, for example, the St. Louis Cardinals that had collected some significant support, hey, this is a great place for you to do a playground that is exactly what you wanted to do. So it was really an opportunity for us then to begin to work with donors who wanted to do something and more, and it gave us a, just kind of a blueprint to be able to work with those donors. So that's a lot of what we do at the Community Foundation, is a matter of empowering people, hopefully with good advice and good plans.
That's excellent, and that just shows the reach of the impact of what's going on here. Now, obviously, we've talked a lot about the infrastructure, but you guys have been busy planting a few trees out here as well.
There's a lot of trees that have been planted. There's a lot more that will be planted as it goes on. Some of it we have to wait for some of the stormwater detention area and all, but there is. And when you look at it, this isn't the only park and more. This isn't the only recovery area. So there's a lot going on. So it's always trying to balance what's that capacity of the group to be able to take care of them. And we know that you look at the temperatures we had this past winter and how cold it got. We got snapped on some of those crepe myrtle varieties. Other ones we came out better on. But it will all come. It's, there's no perfect plant, there's no perfect thing, but it's always trying to think ahead and doing the best job you can.
And of course, we didn't put back the trees that wiped out, because they were long-time trees and kind of in the creek bed and really more of a forest. So we kind of created trees that were more compatible with what the park would really be used for. So maybe it was an improvement over that.
And where the people might want to congregate around them also. Yeah. Well, it's great what you're doing here, and obviously the Oklahoma City Community Foundation is really helping piece the park back together again.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oklahoma Gardening would like to thank the Oklahoma City Community Foundation for the work that it does throughout Oklahoma and its support of our program. Since 1969, the Oklahoma City Community Foundation has worked with donors to create charitable funds and bring together and empower partnerships that benefit our community, both now and into the future. For more information about programs and opportunities for giving, visit the Foundation's website, occf.org. The Oklahoma City Community Foundation, helping you help the community.
Over this past year, I've had the pleasure of meeting with many of you, and there's one question that I keep getting asked. Are we going to bring back the home garden contest? And I'm excited to announce that we are. And we are now accepting entries for the 2017 Oklahoma Gardening Home Contest. This year, we've decided not to narrow it down to a specific theme, because if there's one thing that I've learned about gardening in Oklahoma, it's that it's so diverse, and we want to showcase that diversity. We're excited to see your entries, and we want you to share those with us via our email. After we get those all in, we're going to narrow them down to a few select choices where we'll post them on our Oklahoma Gardening Facebook page. And each of you will have the opportunity to vote on your favorite one that you want us to go visit. You guys have a lot of amazing, beautiful gardens and clever ideas, and I can't wait to come visit you this summer.
Today I'm doing spring ramen. Now this doesn't have to be spring ramen. As the season progresses, you can substitute some other vegetables and make it summer ramen or fall ramen. Today I'm doing spring. So what I've got here is a half a block of ramen noodles. These generally cost around 17 to 25 cents or so at the supermarket. You simply break it in half, and that's what we're going to be using. This we're going to throw away. We don't need it. We're going to add all kinds of other awesome flavors. That's going to reduce the sodium content. There's some fat in there though, so it's definitely not going to be fat-free. So 1 cup of boiling water is going to go over our half a block of ramen, and you're going to let it set about 10 minutes. You can do this here because the other vegetables are going to require some cooking, and we can come back and drain that. So you don't have to start it 10 minutes ahead, but when it has set for around 10 minutes, just drain it off and set it aside until you're ready to use it. At this point, we're going to go on to the next step, which is to heat the pan, and we're going to add about a teaspoon of vegetable oil. I forgot to mention to you one key point, that this is a recipe for one person. I have a lot of ingredients here, so keep in mind that while this is a recipe for one person, if you're doing it right now and expecting to have it for lunch, you're going to be involved. However, a lot of this cutting and chopping can be done ahead of time so that the actual combining of ingredients isn't going to take nearly that long. I've got a teaspoon of, in this case, peanut oil, but you could use other oil, whichever one you happen to have. And to that, I'm going to add a substantial amount of garlic for one person. So I've got a tablespoon of minced garlic. That's about 3 average-sized cloves. And we're going to let that stir around just real briefly because we don't want it to get too dark. So let it start to sizzle just a little bit. And then to that, I'm going to stir in ½ a cup of red bell pepper and ½ a cup of shredded carrots. Now, if you're doing this from the market, you can buy the carrots already shredded and save a little bit of time. And that is, in fact, what I did. However, that does mean they may cook a little bit faster than if you used a different kind of shred on your own. So you want to stir these well so that everything's coated with oil. And then we're going to cover it, and depending on how finely those carrots are shredded, you're going to cook it for about 1 to 2 minutes. I'm going to try it for about 1 because these are fairly fine, and I don't want them to get overly limp. All right, stir it around just a tad. We're going to now stir in 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. And I'm going to recover it again and let it cook again about another 2 minutes or so, depending on how fine. Again, because these carrots are finely shredded, I'm going to give it 1 minute. Okay, you notice we have a little bit of fading with the red bell peppers. If you don't have red bell peppers, you can use another color. I liked red because it's going to contrast with some asparagus and give it a little bit more pop later on. So I've got about ½ a cup of asparagus spears that are cut in about 1-inch pieces, ½ a cup of mushrooms, again sliced. You don't have to do excessively thin, but those are going in there as well. And then we're going to add some seasoning to this. I've got some tamari sauce, which is just about 1/4 of a teaspoon, and then a ½ a teaspoon of sriracha. So if you're not a hot person, remember this is for one person, so I didn't think it was too hot when I ate it, and I'm a mild kind of person. So it should be okay. Then you're going to continue stirring it once in a while. You don't have to stir it all the time. It's not really a stir-fry kind of thing. And some of these vegetables are going to release some additional moisture as well. The tamari sauce is simply a soy sauce that is made without wheat, so that it could be framed as gluten-free. It's got a little bit different flavor. It comes in the same sorts of varieties that you get with regular soy sauce, so that you can get full flavored soy sauce with all the salt in it, or you can get the reduced salt soy sauce and so on. And the same happens with tamari. So if you want to use it or you want to try it, it's kind of fun to try something new. If you can't find it, but you have soy sauce in the refrigerator, just go with that one, you'll be fine. You just want to get, the thing I'm looking at the most closely is the asparagus, because it cooks so quickly, and there's going to be some additional cooking that'll take care of the mushrooms as we go. So I'm going to move forward on this and get our ramen noodles ready. So drain those. You don't have to drain them excessively well because we're adding some other liquid to this along with them. And that will be about 1 cup of broth. I'm using chicken broth. If you wanted to use vegetable broth, works really well. Also to that, I'm going to add a little bit more vegetable oil. I'm going to add ½ a teaspoon of packed brown sugar. We're just going to let this come up to a nice boil. I've got just a tiny bit more oil to that, just to give it a finish off. And when it comes to a boil, we'll add a couple of more ingredients as garnish, and this is going to be ready to eat. All right, I've got a tablespoon of finely chopped peanuts. If you've got other nuts, they would work too, but peanuts are kind of traditional here. So just sprinkle those over the top. You can use salted or unsalted, whichever you have. And then about a tablespoon of cilantro, which could be parsley if you're not a cilantro person. And there you have it. That becomes lunch for one, or dinner. You could, I've thought about this, share it with somebody and make it sort of the appetizer course. But it's spring ramen. It's so good, I don't think you're going to want to. For Oklahoma Gardening, I'm Barbara Brown.
There are lots of great horticultural events this time of year. Be sure and consider these activities when you're making your plans for the weeks ahead. Next week, we are harvesting onions and checking on the garlic. We travel to Greenleaf Nursery to look at some exciting new foliage plants and great shrubs. We build raised beds out of barrels and plant a fun planter in the children's garden that is big, better, and wood. We would love for you to join us next week for more TV You'll Grow to Love. To find out more information about show topics, as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure and visit our website, oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. And we always have great information, answers to questions, photos, and gardening discussions on your favorite social media as well. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows, as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater jewel. We wish to thank our generous underwriters, Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is provided by Pond Pro Shops, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, and the Oklahoma Horticultural Society. We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.